Hey, this is Pete at Graphics, and today we're going to talk a bit about CloudCover, our new cloud-based custom product and template system for Photogize Photo Central and Kiosk. And lesson number one is how to create templates for our system. So let's first take a look at our specification for templates, and you can download this from our website at photogize.com on the downloads page. We talk about a few things. That first and foremost, that these templates all need to be 32-bit Photoshop PSD files. They need to be 300 DPI. They need to have an alpha channel. So we have, and furthermore, we're going to talk about how to configure the photos, the artwork, and the text, which really make up the template itself. So we have a sample here from Photoshop. This is actually a template distributed by the IPI group that was created by some designer, and it is nearly in the proper format, but not quite. So we're going to work with this in Photoshop. I'm going to show you how to get this in the proper format. So let's just minimize our spec for a second so we have more space here. All right. So first and foremost, let's look at the DPI of this. So we'll say image size in Photoshop, and it's a 4x8 card at 300 DPI. That's great. 300 DPI being the key thing. Everything has to be at 300 DPI. Secondly, you need an alpha channel. Right now, you see the RGB channels, red, green, and blue. We need an alpha channel. So click on New, and it's going to make you an alpha channel. Magic, just like that. Now to see the design, just click on RGB and uncheck alpha, and you're back to where you started. So now we have our alpha channel. We're at 300 DPI. And so now let's look at our photos. So basically, the rendering engine in Photogize is going to look at your photos, and it's going to give you the same position, the same opportunity to put photos in, the user to put photos in the kiosk and in the online interface. So the photos should be where you want the photos to be. If we just hide the artwork and everything else and just look at the photos, maybe just toggle on the artwork, you can see that these photos are good. They're positioned properly, they're sized properly. What you may run into are situations where the photos are arbitrarily big. Like if this photo here had taken up nearly the whole card space, that wouldn't be good, because by default the customer would drop a photo into that hole and it would crop it way out, right? So we don't want that. We want the photos to be just a little bit bigger than the hole that they belong in, like that. So the photos will place in the user interfaces will place properly in this case. So that's great. The other thing is we want the photos to be called sample photo or sample photo space number. So this is sample photo 1, sample photo 2. So if it's called anything but photo, we won't know that that's a place to drop a photo in. So they must be called sample photo or sample photo 1 or sample photo 2 and so on. So those are set. So the photos are set. Now let's look at the artwork. Well, we have really two pieces of artwork here. So we have this being what they're calling art, and we have this thing called greeting, which is text and sort of, but it's really part of the design, right? So we need to compress that down into one layer. All the artwork has to be on one layer. So what I'm going to do is highlight these two layers in Photoshop. I'm going to right click and I'm going to say merge layers. And then I'm going to click on the name of this layer so that I can rename it, and click that, and we're going to say art. So now the layer is correct with all the artwork. Last, and the more complicated bit, is the text. So let's look at our text. The text, firstly, the text box, the total extent of the text, is where we are going to allow users at the kiosk and online to put their text. And so you want to make the text box extent to be as big as possible. So I'm going to make this just a little bit bigger, just by putting in some random characters. What's in there doesn't matter, but the actual width and extent of this box does matter. So in other words, there's going to be, when we allow consumers to put text in, the total text box is going to be like that, right? That is basically the size and space that people are going to be able to use. That looks about right. If it had been as it was originally keyed in with that short text, we wouldn't have let people use any larger size than that. So it's kind of important to make sure that you have the text extents set. So let's now talk about the label for the text layer in Photoshop. Normally the layer is just simply the text that's actually on the design itself. That's the default. But we use that layer name to help us determine the default rendering conditions for this text. Typeface, color, size, orientation, stuff like that. So let's go back and take another look at our template specification. And so this is the typeface string right here. So the first portion of it is the typeface, like Times or Georgia or whatever, followed by a comma, then the size, which is in points times 10, so like 12-point text would be 120. The style could be normal, bold, italic, etc., but normally that's just set to 0. The orientation is this matrix down here of horizontal and vertical orientation. Normally everything's just sort of center oriented, so it's like a 5. But if you add 10 or add 20, we do top to bottom or bottom to top text like you would see on, say, the spine of a book. And lastly, you have the red, green, and blue colors as a 0 to 255 triplet. The color is kind of important because the designer typically has an intention for the text, like a cream color or a certain kind of blue or something that matches another element of the design. So you really should start off with the right color as intended by the designer. Now, the user at the kiosk or online can make changes, but this is the default color that if they do nothing, they're going to get. And down here we have a sample string, which is Arial and 14-point text. It's a 0 style 9, which is right justified text, and then it's white 255, 255, 255. So now let's go back to our Photoshop design, and so I happen to have in my clipboard the proper thing here. So let's just paste that in. Okay. So as you can see, what we have is Georgia style text, 120 or 12-point text. It's 0 for style. It's an orientation of 1, and it is white colored. Now I determined that because I clicked on the text, and I highlighted it and I said, oh, it's 12 points up here, and it's Georgia, and that's how I got those numbers. And I know it's white because I clicked on here, and I saw that it's white here, RGB. And as far as the orientation being 1, well, let's just go back to our spec again, and let's see. I thought it might be left oriented and top. So that 1 would have worked, 5 would have worked, whatever. So now we have our text done, we have our artwork done, we have our photos done, and we now have a template. If I save this, this is a template that we can now use within the context of the Photogize rendering engine.